Hello, this is Brainstorm Comics. We're doing a weekly segment where we're going to go over Dungeons & Dragons for younger players. It may help also the older players who are looking to get into the game for the first time. For those of you who don't know, we are Brainstorm Comics and Gaming. We have been serving the Frederick area since 1984 for their comics and gaming needs. We have been voted Frederick's Best since 2013 for 8 years in running in Frederick Magazine. That's something we are quite proud of, and hopefully we'll win again this year. We will find out. So let's get started with this week's session where we review the character sheet on how to create your character. So the first session we went over the books that you need to start playing. For those of you who didn't watch that one, you may want to go back and do so, just because we're going to do this in the procedure that you would do in order to start. So this week we're covering the character sheet, like I initially said. So we're going to start at the top. So this is Jake, for those who don't know. You want to introduce yourself, Jake?
I am Jacob.
And how old are you?
I'm 10.
And how long have you been playing Dungeons & Dragons?
Probably about 2 years now.
2 years now? Okay. So let's start at the top of the character sheet, like I said. So at the top, the first thing we see is class and level. Can you give a description of what those two things are?
The class is your character's profession, and it determines what actions your character can perform. And your character gains some special class features and like special abilities based on the class. And then the level is kind of like... So the level is like how experienced your character is. Like a level 1, you're just getting into playing. Like a level 5 would be stronger. You'd be way more experienced.
Okay. And I know you and I have discussed this like outside of the video, but maybe we want to talk about it for the video as well. When you're beginning, you don't necessarily have to start at level 1, right?
Mm-hmm. So when you're beginning in one-shots or basically anything else, your DM will choose what level you start at, but it's just depending on like what's the big bad. If it's a dragon, you're gonna want to be higher than level 1. You're gonna be like 4 or 5. But like if it's just some like a dire wolf or something like not giant, but like dealable, then you'll probably just start at level 1 or 2.
Or if you're doing a longer campaign, you probably want to start at level 1 just so you can see your character progress as the story goes along, right?
Yep.
So, and so the next one we're going to go to is background. What exactly is background mean?
A background is it's basically the character's history, what they did before the game and before like all the characters met.
Okay. So it's kind of like their backstory, how it would have, and sometimes that affects the game in terms of what the DM wants to use from the character's background.
Yep.
How have you used that in your campaign? Or in your one shot?
A little bit.
Okay.
Like, not a ton, though.
Because you had your story already pretty much worked around it. Okay. How about player name?
Player name, you can choose that. You can, like, find good names off of just Safari and other things. But you can basically make it whatever you want.
Okay. And sometimes the names are also pre-generated if it's a pre-generated character. Okay. And what about faction?
I don't actually know what a faction is.
And what would you normally do if you don't know? Like,
I'd go and I'd ask my dad. So, Dad, what's a faction?
Factions can be part of the background. It can be different organizations that your character may or may not be associated with.
Like a guild or something like that?
Yeah, it doesn't come up all that often, but it's in some of the extended source books. You could be associated with different factions.
Especially if you use like the Ravnica, which is I'm assuming that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Any of those. And it's more... ties into your backstory, and the game master might use that to kind of tailor experiences towards your character, the people you know.
And what about race?
So race is your character's like it's your species, and it helps like your physical look. It can also include like certain abilities. Like if you're an elf, you'll be able to see in the dark better, and it will be called dark vision.
Okay.
A human, you don't really get any special features, but if it's like more out there, then you'll get a special feature normally for your race.
How many races are detailed in the player's handbook? If you had to guess, so you don't have to give us like exact number.
I think there's about like 8. I know there's a elf, dwarf, halfling, human, half elf, tiefling. And lots of other options.
So, but the other options are mostly in extended books, right? Like like books you would buy.
Yeah.
Okay. But these 8 are very solid for you to begin your adventure. Like you want to try these first, and then after you become a little bit more comfortable with the game, perhaps explore a little bit more afterwards.
Yep.
Okay. How about alignment?
Alignment. So alignment is your general temperament to others and the world around you. It's not really used much, but it could be like lawful good, chaotic, chaotic good, neutral, lawful evil, chaotic evil, and just more.
Yeah, I know your dad and I were discussing, like in earlier editions, alignment was a very big thing. Right, Jason?
Yep, absolutely.
And then it's become less so over time.
Yeah, it's used more for flavor these days. There's no penalties or bonuses really tied to alignment anymore.
Yeah, because wasn't the problem with it that sometimes it was handcuffing the characters and the story?
Absolutely, paladins were a good example, right? They were very tied to lawful good.
Okay.
And there were some pretty stiff penalties if you went out of that the game master could kind of put on your character, and that's kind of gone away with the addition with 5e.
And that brings up a thing that, again, we want to reiterate that the player's handbook says do whatever makes the story fun, makes everybody have a good time. So I know we covered class and level, and the next one is experience points. That ties into level, right?
Yeah, so you can get experience points from basically doing pretty much about anything. You normally would get them from killing monsters, just like doing like big achievements.
Completing a quest, or... and then we have the last one, which is DCI number. That's only really important if you're doing the Adventure League, right?
Uh-huh.
And you want to give a quick description of what Adventure League is? Are you familiar with Adventure League?
No, I'm not.
Okay. So Adventure League is where you can go to your local gaming store, like us, and we run one-shot adventures. Obviously, right now we're not able to do that just because of the coronavirus stuff going on. But we're hoping to do that again really, really soon. Keep an eye out for our announcements for all of that. So next up we have strength.
Strength would be the kind of like physical ability, so like breaking down doors. Just mainly when you think about it, like having strength, like being able to do this, like lifting a heavy thing, throwing something heavy.
And the 6 things we're covering right now, including strength, are the attributes of the character, right?
Yes.
And they determine like different aspects of like what they can do and can't do, that sort of thing, or at least their probability of being able to accomplish something, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So strength is how strong they are, like with lifting abilities, things like that. What about dexterity?
Dexterity is kind of like the way you move. Are you clumsy? Can you like move around slyly? And kind of just like your movement, if you're quick, if you're like very noticeable.
Helps with lockpicking and stuff as well, I'm sure.
Yes.
Okay. What about constitution?
Constitution, it's kind of like your character's health. So it'd be how many hit points you have.
Okay. And intelligence?
Intelligence would be kind of like book smart. Like, can you read this certain language? Can you read that? Are you not, like, can you not really read it all?
Problem solving kind of skills also? Okay. What about wisdom?
Wisdom is kind of like knowing what to do when. So like wisdom would be like knowing how to start a fire or knowing how to do something like that.
Okay. And what about charisma?
Charisma would be, is your character likable? Does not many people like your character? Kind of just like the it's kind of just like, does your character, is it like really popular?
Do people want to follow him? Or...
Yeah, or are they like in the shadows? No one notices them.
Gotcha. So these 6 things are key to your character, correct?
Yeah.
And so you roll dice for these?
You can do it multiple ways, but the main way would be rolling dice for them.
And how many dice do you roll for?
You'd roll, so there's multiple things that you can do. Normally you just roll 3 dice and take out one of them, the lowest.
Okay. And let's say we were building a paladin. Like, you would choose your attributes differently, like where you want to be stronger than if you were like a rogue or something like that, correct? Do you want to give an example of like?
Yeah. So if, like you said, if you're a paladin, you'd really want to focus on strength and charisma, really. But if you're a rogue, you wouldn't really care about the charisma at all. Strength maybe a little, but you mostly care about that dexterity.
Okay. And we'll go over those a little bit further in a different, maybe the next video.
Mm-hmm.
That way we can like build a couple different characters and show like where you maybe want to put like the
Yep.
strengths on each one. Okay, next up we have inspiration.
Inspiration, so your DM can choose, it's not something that you have to worry about while making a character, but in-game, your DM can choose whether or not to give you inspiration for like doing something good. There's also bardic inspiration, it's kind of like normal inspiration, and inspiration really works is you get to, if you have a really bad dice roll, you'll be able to re-roll that dice, but then the inspiration will be gone, so you can choose when to use it.
Okay. And what about proficiency bonus?
That would be kind of like, what is your character's strong suit in? So like a rogue would be dexterity, paladin would be strength.
Alright, so next one, some people might be confused by this. I'm not a role player myself, I've said that in the first video, and I'm a little confused by looking at the sheet on this one also. So it lists the six attributes again, but it says saving throws underneath it.
So saving throws would be, there are certain times when you will have to roll and the DM will say a saving throw. And you'll get certain extras, like certain extra +1s and stuff on certain things, if it's a saving roll.
Okay. So it kind of helps you out if like you maybe were strong in that suit and you failed for whatever reason, so
Yep.
you get another chance, kind of. Okay. And then we have a bunch of skills beneath that. Since there's like 20 of them, we won't go over all 20. I'll let you choose like 3 of them,
Okay.
and you can give some ideas about each one.
So some of the main 3 that I think are important, I like investigation. That's normally really important.
Well, let's cover what skills are first.
Okay.
So what exactly is a skill?
A skill is kind of like, you'll get a certain, like when you're rolling, you'll be able to choose, there's like, I don't remember the exact number, but you'll be able to choose certain skills.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like your character's strong. It's kind of like the dexterity and that stuff. If you have dexterity, you'll be like really sly. So you'd be like athletic and you choose some of that stuff. But if like you're a rogue, you want investigation, you want stealth, you want stuff like that.
So there's a parenthetical next to each one of the skills. Is that the attribute that kind of corresponds with it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Do you want to go over the 3 then?
Yeah, so I would probably rate the 3 most important. Athletics is really important. That would be kind of like strength, where you, like being able, like it says, athletic, like being able to jump off of high stuff.
Lift
Again,
things
being
up.
able to lift things up, throwing things, and stuff like that.
Maybe break a lock,
Mhm.
something like that. Wield a bigger sword?
Mhm.
Okay.
Medicine is another big one, depending on your role. That can be like, are you able to like help your teammate if they get hurt? You can have certain spells for medicine and stuff like that. And then persuasion is also, persuasion is also really useful. It's basically like, it's like it sounds.
Talking people into
Yeah.
doing stuff that you want them to do.
Normally a rogue would have it.
So if you're like talking to a guard and they don't want to let you by, you could...
Yeah.
Okay. So choosing the skills, you may want to make it correspond with like your background and stuff like that also,
Yep.
though, right? Okay. All right, we'll move right below that
I
one.
would point out, guys, that you said the most important, Jake. I think the important thing to remember is there are no most important skills that can be the most important for how you're trying to play your character. All of those skills just add flavor, and they just kind of change the way that you're able to interact with the game. So you pick the things that might appeal to you and the things that you see yourself doing during a game, and maybe investigate points and proficiencies into those slots.
So like reflecting your background or your character class and stuff like that. Things like
Yeah,
that.
or even, you can play a character any way you want, right? You could be a rogue who doesn't steal. So that's kind of the great thing about 5e is you can kind of build whatever type of player that you can imagine. So you can put those points in there's certain things that you'll be naturally better at just based on the numbers and the class and everything, right? But if you want to play kind of an oddball character, you have something in mind, you can work that character sheet to come up with anything you can imagine.
Gotcha. So, like I said, in a future video, maybe the next video, we'll go over more of those. I just want to do this more like an overview of what the character sheet really is. All right. So below that, we have passive wisdom, which has a parenthetical of perception.
Perception is basically the same as that. That is kind of, It's like just glancing by. Do you notice anything different? Like, is there a certain book, like in your library, is there a certain book that like sticks out to you that's weird?
Out of place or something?
Yeah, those passive stats are something your game master is going to use more than... It's not really an active thing. It's something your game master will reference to decide what information he or she may or may not give you.
And then below that, it says other proficiencies in languages.
So that would be like extra things you're good at in extra languages. So like, I know there's Dwarven, there's like Dragonite. I don't know the exact name of it.
So if you were like human, but you were raised by elves, you might be able to speak Elvish also, and that would go in the proficiency. Yeah. Okay. So we'll go to the next column, and there we have armor class.
So that is the AC, and that is if your DM has a monster and they're throwing it at you. That AC, when they roll, they have to get that AC or higher to actually hit you.
Okay. And what about initiative?
Initiative, so that would be, that is a plus counter. So you roll the dice for initiative to see who goes first in an attack battle.
Okay.
So let's say we're going to roll and there's like a big dragon. That so like a rogue would have a better initiative because they want to go up first and just slightly attack. So their initiative will be +3, +4.
Okay. And then speed?
Speed, normally the speed would be, I think it's about 25. 30 per, so it would be 30 feet per turn.
Okay. So that's like walking speed, or is that?
That is like how many...
That's your standard movement speed.
Standard movement speed? Okay.
I think we're going to plan on going over the anatomy of a turn in a future video.
Yes.
That speed doesn't mean a whole lot for this, but it will in the future.
Okay. And then we're going to move on to... So I'm going to cover the next two together because I'm assuming that they do go together, and that's current hit points and temporary hit points.
Those are actually a little bit different. Okay. The current hit points are the... what's it called? So the current hit points are the amount of health you have remaining. So that number can't go above your maximum hit points. But the temporary hit points are not used in the character creation. And they, like spells and other buffs can give temporary hit points would be... So you can get over if you're like at full and you get a buff, you'd be able to go like 2 or 3 health over it.
Okay. So kind of help you out like if your wizard is trying to help your wizard out or your warrior out or whatever. Mm-hmm. All right, so total hit dice?
Hit dice... I don't know if we covered this. Hit dice would be like how many dice you roll to hit something.
Okay. And then we have a little grid bubble thing where it says successes, failures, and then death saves.
So the death saves, there are successes. You roll a dice each turn. You can get knocked out. And then you start having to roll death saves. And if there's like 3 fails, then you start going to the death saves. And if you like mess one up, your character's dead. Okay. And you need 3 successes to get back in the game.
Now, I'll ask you this. There are some DMs that are very kind about that, especially if you're a beginner player.
Yes.
so explain like...
So some DMs would be like more strict, like once you roll 3, you're completely out of game. And other DMs will be loose about it if you're just starting, and well, they'll normally give you like 5 or 6 dice to roll instead of like those 4 or 5.
Maybe fudge the numbers a little bit also, just to keep people having fun and in the game. All right, so the next grouping, it says attacks and spell casting.
Okay, so your spell casting is the spells that you can normally, like the spells that you can cast. And certain spells, like paladins, don't really have many spells, but the spells they have will like enhance their attacking. Like there's Divine Smite that helps you attack, that lets you roll extra dice for when you hit something. And then attacks would be like, it would be your it would be like slashing and it would be stuff like that.
Okay. And then below that is equipment.
So equipment is all you'd find it in the player's handbook with like your race and your character. It will be like a certain thing. It'll be a certain category, and you'll get certain equipment for the like class you have.
Okay. Now, is equipment also weapons, or is it a totally separate thing?
It's everything.
It's everything.
Everything in total. So it'll be gold.
It's just a place
like
for you to track your stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. And some of these pieces of equipment can affect your character also?
Yes, depending on.
Okay, so it might add to your strength.
Yeah,
or...
so there's like rings of healing and stuff like that. And that would, well, like it says, it would heal you and do stuff like that.
But there's also negative ones also, like cursed equipment?
Yes, so there are certain curses, like I don't know exact names of some cursed weapons, but I know there's like cursed swords that will like, there's some of them that will like talk back to you. Then like, they'll give you, I think it's, you have to roll 2 dice and take the lower.
Okay. So there's ways that, you know, the equipment can either help you or hinder you.
Yes.
All right, so then we're going to go to the next column, and the first thing we have is our personality traits.
So that would be, it would kind of be the personality of your character, like, is it, so is your character, like, nice and stuff like that.
Okay.
That's complete flavor stuff, helps you kind of fill your background and stuff. There's suggestions in the player's handbook, but you can kind of fill that out however you want.
Or even as you go along, I assume.
Exactly. A lot of people like to build their characters as they play.
Okay. And ideals?
Ideals are the things that your character believes strongly in.
Okay. So, going back to the idea of like the human raised by elves, you know, perhaps he sees the elvish prejudice or something like that. Like he's more defense.
Yeah.
Okay. What about bonds?
It's how your character is tied to the world of the game. Like, can it be? It could be a person, place, or event.
Okay. So things that they feel tied to.
Mm-hmm.
Again, going back to that example, it would be like an elvish.
Yeah.
Okay. What about flaws?
Like a fear or weakness of something. Like someone can have a fear of water or something like that.
Okay. And last but not least, features and traits.
So
I assume it's like scars and things like that make you identifiable.
Yeah.
Any examples for like your characters that you use for?
I didn't actually do many features and traits for mine, but like common ones would be like scars. Maybe like there's a certain scar on the face or something like that.
Tattoos, just something that makes you unique from everybody else. All right. And how long do you think, or how long does it generally take for somebody to create a character?
It depends on how you create it. Like D&D Beyond, 15, 20 minutes. Just on paper, probably around 30 to 35, depending.
Okay.
It depends on how deep you go into like your backstory and stuff like that.
And how much do you think people, like, how long do you normally spend on it, like in terms of creating your backstory, and like how in depth do you go?
I don't go too in depth. Like I'll normally just choose one of the pre-made ones from the player's handbook.
Okay.
So from my process, it would probably take about 20 to 25 minutes.
Okay. And then you maybe add things as you go along, or change up the characters a little bit.
Yep.
All right. Is there anything else you think people should know about the character sheet?
Not really. I think we've covered everything.
Okay. And I know, and maybe Jason is probably going to be better to speak to this part or not. I know some people save their character sheets to like, even after the character is dead, like it's because it kind of reminds them of the adventure that they went on, or everything that kind of happened to that character.
Absolutely, it becomes kind of a keepsake of the adventure you're sharing with your friends.
Yeah, because people rewrite everything on this, right? And, like take things off. And...
Yeah, if I'm doing them on paper, it's not uncommon for that thing to get carried all around, and I'll have to transfer it to a new character sheet and use it and scratch out and erase. And it's really a living document as you play. You're kind of using that to kind of help dictate your actions and keep track of everything.
Yeah, so like I said, people use these as like Jason said, like keepsakes to reminisce about the. Like I said, you just started, so you may not quite be at that point yet. But,
no.
But if you're just starting, you may want to keep your first one just to see how you're.
Like I have a few, but I don't have many.
Yeah, I would love to have my first one to look back on.
Yeah. So that's it for this one. We did the character sheet this time. I think what we discussed was to roll up our character next time. Go over like how to create the backstory and everything. Maybe we'll work on that human raised by the elves and see what we can do with that. Yep. All right, sound good?
Yep.
Hey, I would just point out that this stuff seems pretty overwhelming, but like coming into a shop like this or finding some friends that play can really help break this down. And Jake's had the advantage of, kind of growing up in a family that plays this game and having a shop like this down the street. So he came into this not knowing anything at like 8 years old and was able to create a character sheet, have a great time out of the gate. So don't be intimidated by all the numbers and the books. Just get some friends that want to play and ask for help if you need it and have a great time.
And like the book says, the important part is having fun. So so that's it for this video. We will have another one ready for you guys next week. Hopefully you enjoyed it. We'll probably do a live one next week. If we do, it will air Saturday at 11 a.m. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you're having fun watching the video.